If you didn't know, the embryo cryocan is the device used by Nedry in Jurassic Park to steal the dinosaur embryos. He carefully smuggles the embryos inside one of these shaving foam cans in a little aluminium mechanism. And the replicas out there are gorgeous. I have one here. Now, I've reviewed these in many videos, so if you want to see an in-depth review of this, link is down below. But you can see it's a spring-loaded mechanism. I've been looking at these cans, and I was made aware by a fan recently that these cans are actually not correct. They're not the ones that you see in the film. I was made aware of this by two fans in particular. I won't mention their names, but I can't take credit for this discovery. But I wanted to share with you as Jurassic Park fans because it's fairly groundbreaking. Let's take a look at an image of the can scene in the film. Okay, so you can see that actually the top of the can does not match this one. This has a little lip that goes in, and then this part is actually a little bit thinner and a bit taller than the top of the other can. And although this is actually an 11-ounce can, so it's the same amount of fluid ounces inside, they don't match in terms of the actual can design. And it's funny because if you take a look at this Barbasol advertising, which was a tie-in for Jurassic World, you can see that even in this advert they've used this can, which is the incorrect can. So I decided to set myself the task of making a screen accurate embryo cryocan replica, something that I hadn't seen done yet apart from in the film itself. Now, the actual Barbasol 11-ounce can is very difficult to find. I think a lot of people have scooped those up knowing their value. Also, it was made from a different material, whereas the new ones are made from aluminium. The old ones were made from steel and therefore were prone to rusting. And also, it was made in the 80s and early 90s, and I don't know how many were actually made for the type that you see in the film. What I did have already was a perfectly good aluminium spring-loaded mechanism to actually serve as the inside of the can. So most of the work is done already, and all I really wanted to do was to create an accurate outer shell. So much like my night vision goggles project, I scoured the internet and found this. This is a vintage Colgate shaving foam can. It's an 11-ounce can, so it's the right volume inside. Its width fits perfectly over the aluminium mechanism that I need it to, and the design matches the one seen in Jurassic Park. If I bring in the replica, you can see how different these are. It's subtle, but it's definitely different. You can see you've got this indentation running around the outside of this one, and the can kind of juts out. This one doesn't do that, it just runs straight up, flush with that top part. And this was the can that you see in Jurassic Park, or the correct shape of the can. Finding the correct can was half the battle, to be honest, and also finding one that could be shipped to the UK, because it seems like a lot of these are leftover stock in the US. And also finding ones that are in good condition. A lot of these vintage cans have rusted away. As I said, they were made from steel, so the iron content meant that it did oxidize. Yeah, it's kind of tricky to find these. There are some of these Colgate cans still available on eBay, so if you do want to attempt the same process, there are some still available. What I'd say is be very careful, because these are pressurized cans, so we have to first degas the can and get rid of all the foam inside before we even consider taking the bottom off. So that's the next stage. Special thanks to Paul Elder for suggesting this automated approach to emptying the can. Just strap an elastic band around and put something on top, and it helps relieve the pressure inside the can. Okay, so now this thing is degassed, and I've taken this thing off a few times and actually pressed the button myself just to test that there's no more foam. I've held it upside down. You want to make sure it's absolutely empty of any foam, because you don't want any pressure when you open this thing up. You don't want it to pop. And then what you want to do is take a tin opener like this one. Make sure you do get adult supervision if you're doing anything like this. And then you want to slot that in at the bottom, just there, and cut off all the way around the bottom. The last can opener I used for this worked a lot better than this one. And ideally, you want a can opener that sort of cuts very lightly, so actually is not a great can opener, because then you can at least do it in little passes. See if we can twist. There we go. And it's easy as that. You can see we've got a very rough edge that we need to clean up. Just flush out the insides. So inside, you don't want to touch this area, and be very careful when handling the base that's fallen off. But you can see there's a little tube that goes down to the inside to make sure that the spray always comes from the bottom. Quite clever. But what you'll want to do is get like a pair of pliers and snip round and pull that out. So I'll show you me doing that in a minute. Okay, so I've got a wooden surface here. Remember, be very careful with this area. It's still very sharp. And I'm just going to use this rolling pin here to just flatten out this inner side so you don't have any untidy marks along the bottom. You can apply more pressure and just spin the can. That's already looking miles better. Still got some uneven bits, but what we're going to actually do is sand back this area to make it nice and flush. As I was doing mine, the actual tube has just fallen out here, so I think the glue that held it in has dissolved over the years. With mine, on a newer can, I had to use a pair of pliers to take it out, but on this older can it just came out. Now you can see I've still got a few dings around here, just around the bottom. So what I'm going to do there is just go around with a little hammer and just bang those out. There we go. I don't know how much you can see that, but that's got out most of the dings there. So it's just a bit tidier. Okay, so now I'm just going to take this file here and I'm just going to run the base of the can along it just to take off this uneven edge. So using a file really takes off a lot and gets rid of the misshapen parts, and then we can move to a finer sandpaper just to get it nice and smooth. So let's start just running this along the file. So the next stage was to print off the label. Now luckily Jurassic Park fans have made these, and there were two fans in particular who both sent me copies of these Barbasol labels. I believe Paul Elder has them on his Etsy site. I actually printed this out on glossy vinyl inkjet paper. I think it was Paul who recommended I use that paper. Essentially it's more of a plastic based vinyl, so it's a little bit more hard wearing, and actually the quality is very similar to what you'd get on the outside of the cans. And here is the result, the screen accurate Barbasol can. Now I have showed this to another fan and they've already pointed out a little flaw in that the bottom piece here where it says 11 ounces could be higher up. So this is kind of like my Mark 1, much like my goggles. It's my first attempt of the screen accurate can, but overall I'm pretty pleased with this. I'm actually really pleased with the way that the aluminium stripe came out, because there is an exposed piece of, not aluminium, steel underneath, and you can see that silvery stripe has been maintained. So I'm really pleased with the way that looks. And it does have inside the spring-loaded mechanism. I notice in a lot of the existing prop replicas, if I bring in this one, because people have filled them with food colouring or what have you to represent the actual embryo liquid. But a lot of fans fill the vials up quite high, and actually if you look in the film, they seem to kind of dwell in the bottom. There's only a little bit of embryo fluid on each one, so I'm going to make sure I match that accurately. But like I say, a lot of the work is done because I have these aluminium machined mechanisms already done for me, so half the work is already done. But in terms of the screen accurate shell that I've built, I'm really chuffed to bits with this. It looks great on the shelf, and actually it reads much better as the screen use prop. Just sat there on display, it really does look like the one that you see on Nedry's desk, so I'm really pleased with the outcome of this project. Don't forget to rate, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I've also made a screen accurate pair of night vision goggles that actually work, so be sure to check out that video, link is down below. In the meantime guys, rate, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.